Today, oh, okay, this meeting is being recorded. So today we are going to go to the next slide and start with introducing the management team. So Jesse, if you want to go and.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Jesse Berkey, a U of O technical assistance provider for YTP with the Mid-Willamette Valley region. So it's Woodburn down to Lane County. Michelle.
Hello, Michelle Markle. I'm the YTP technical assistance provider up in Multnomah, Clackamas, Hood River, and North Wasco County.
Hello, everyone. I'm Garrett Reep. I'm the technical assistance provider for the Northwest region.
All right. Sally. Sally on?
Guess not.
Can you guys hear me?
Is that
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, this is
Hi,
Cynthia.
Oh.
Go ahead, Sally, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sally Simich, and I'm with the Oregon Department of Education, and I'll be on the phone until my computer connects.
Charlotte, are you there?
I am indeed. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Summer Academy. Hope you're doing something fun and you've got your flip-flops on.
All right. And Lisa, the best for last.
I'm Lisa Catherwood and the statewide YTP coordinator, and welcome.
Thanks.
Lisa, you were rolling your eyes.
Oh, I was scratching. Sorry. I was not rolling them because of this.
And I'm Mary Jo Erickson. I'll be presenting with Terry Falkenstern today. I want to give a little, I know Terry will talk a little bit too, but Terry and I are both former YTP transition specialists, and we did it for 11, I think Terry was 12, 13 years. And so we come to this training with just wanting you to know that we have been in the field and we have done the jobs that you guys are doing. And this training and what we're talking about, we agree with completely. We look back and see, Terry and I were talking earlier about, wow, I maybe should have done this different with this student or that. But we want you to know that we all work together as a management team, and Terry and I, for this presentation today, are really pulling from our experiences as being transition specialists, and then how we're going to move forward with this new paradigm shift in our coming up for YTP. So I will be jumping in later, and Terry, go for it.
Okay, so I'm Terry Falkenstern, and technical assistance provider for Central and Eastern Oregon. And as Mary Jo said, we've worked together about 12 years in 4J and 2 years. That's like 14 years. That's a long time. You're like family. And I think that's what teams are, though. I think we're going to talk a lot about teams today. And we don't always have, when I started at 4J, we had this great team. Did it stay that way for 12 years? Well, no, people come and go. And like this team, we have the management team at the U of O. We all have our strengths, and it's really great to work with other people and let them do the things that they do well, and you do the things that you do well. And, I'm not this big picture person where Michelle, Jesse, and Garrett are really good at that. And, and Sally's always the voice of reason. And, we have all these really great players on our team. And we want to push you guys to shoot for that in your program because, that old hokey saying, it takes a village. But it's true. One person can't do this job. It's a job that it takes teamwork. So I just love all these people I work with at the U of O, and they're really good people. So, and I hope you find that in your work, that is a goal. So today, please make sure your name is changed on your you have 3 dots, you can change your name so that we know who's here. Please unmute yourself or raise your hand when we ask for participation. We're trying to stay a little bit away from the chat because I find it's a distraction to me. We will monitor the chat, but may not get to your questions today, but we'll come back with answers if you really have some things. We'll do a question answer session probably in July, and we are recording. And next I will do a few announcements. So save the dates. I think most of you know this, but it's always, I love to remind people because, and we really hope that we can all be together again also. So that's also part of this announcement. Can't wait to see you all in person. The other announcement that I was asked to do is on the MEGA training. So Heather Lynch does, there's a MEGA training in October, November, January, and February. They're 1 day each. So four days, but 1 month apart. So I want you to go to the YTP website and under news, scroll down and you can find all that information. And if you have questions, Heather is really easy to contact. So send her an email and she'll get back to you. Okay, that's for announcements.
Any other announcements, anybody? I think we're good. All right.
So today we're going to talk about the cohort model in the paradigm shift. We'll cover program management, teamwork, screening and referral, YTP enhanced activity, and employment.
Okay, so as Terry was talking, our objective today is to the definition of the cohort model in YTP, how the work of a YTP team can change by the cohort model. And our professional development framework will support the YTP team in making this shift. So you're not alone out there. The first Thursday, Michelle gave us an overall view of YTP, where we are going and why. And a lot of you got a little concerned about that, and we hear you. Garrett really drove in closer to looking at the essential program characteristics that are needed in order to run a great YTP program. And so today, Terry and I are going to try and have you walk away feeling a little bit better about all of this and realizing that it is really a good thing. Again, we know that you guys all have a lot of questions, that you're concerned. We meet together as a group every Monday morning and share what questions that a lot of you have been sending to us and try to troubleshoot them and understand where you're coming from. And so we hear that. We know there are fears and concerns. A lot of you are wondering, what does this mean for my next YTP application? And we call it the YTP grant. Now we're going to call it, and this is going to be difficult for some of you that have been around, it's the IGA, your intergovernmental agreement, is what we'll be referring to the YTP grant in the future. A lot of you say, I don't even have a team. How do you guys keep talking about this team? And I feel like I'm in a silo. I'm the lone wolf out here and have nobody. And what if I don't meet my benchmark? So, we understand that you're concerned about that. And we want to make sure that you understand it and don't get stressed out about it. So for your benchmarks, this biennium that you are working will count. In the cohort model, all students are going to count. We always look at data on a site-by-site basis, and we get that there have been many missing VRCs. There's been transition specialist turnover. We've got COVID, we've got a pandemic going on. We've got some of you, it's been difficult to engage students. Some of you, it was a long time before you could even call students. And we understand all of that. We know what you're doing because we do keep in contact with you on a regular basis. And we know how hard you're all working. The cohort model will show all the active students you are working with. So the last thing we want to do is put added stress on you guys. We know that things are tough, and some of you are like, why are you doing this in the middle of a pandemic and all of that? Again, this is something we've been working on for a long time, and we want to, now is a good time to get it out and get you working on it, but we don't want you to stress. So a cohort, we keep going back to our dictionary definitions, but a cohort is a group of people banded together or treated as a group. Working with a group is so nice because the kids, you think about, you entered college in that freshman cohort, or you were in a certain cohort group for some other kind of education. It's just a really nice way to get to know people, to get to build those relationships. What I like about it is really working together and looking at your students that are coming in all together and working with them as a group and moving them along their pathway to a successful transition from school to work or training. And working as a whole group, and we're going to talk about that, is, that we ask a lot of you, and we want to make sure that you all in your different schools can figure out how you can make this work. We have, why a cohort? Why are we doing this? And the benchmarks are looked over time, and everyone counts. Remember that. The why, your YTP outcomes will be aligned with the post-school outcomes. So you're seeing some of our language when you see the YTP database. You'll see that we need SSID numbers now. The same thing that you had to look up when you were doing your post-school outcome exit interviews or follow-up interviews. So we want that. We want to be able to find out, what is YTP working? Are kids getting jobs? Are they successful in their jobs? And this is going to be a great way for us, I think, to have this evidence to show, yes, we know YTP works, but we need the evidence to show exactly how great it is. Remember that the math adds up and makes sense. In the past, counting was based on in-application date and exit. And now all you're going to have to do is think about the students in that biennium in which the student begins YTP in application. We had all these other crazy dates that were, if they'd been in application for 2 years, they counted, or 4 years, and then if you when you exited them, there's all this stuff to look at. Those of you that have been around a long time understand that. And this is just going to we feel it's going to make your life easier. So you're always working with students, remember to finish the story. Even if you signed somebody up 4 years ago, your job is still to follow them through their 12 months and have to finish their story. I mean, I take that from Peter Fitzgerald, who was one of the first technical assistance providers, and that's the bottom line. We want to finish that story with a student that we've started. You will know exactly the biennium they were signed up in. Remember, from a systems level, it takes 2 to 4 years to learn your job and get your YTP students to where you want to go. So this just another reminder, please don't go, what are you guys talking about? I don't know what's happened. I just started a month before COVID. How am I going to do this? Well, this is, give yourself time, give yourself a break. It's okay, we get it. And this model right here just shows, how it was before, where we had students that came in at one point, the next biennium started, they exited. There's just all this overlap, and the counting got very difficult. What we're going to look at now is these are buckets. You say you've got 20 students that you want to, that you in your IGA that you want to have for your student base is 20 for the 1921 school year. Okay, your job is obviously to get 20 students in application, but also get them in and get them out. Our real focus is on outcomes. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but we really want to get students going. We want to get them in and get them jobs. So the huge piece of this, what you're going to hear, is we need to get the students ready before our sign up, before we're going to make them YTP students and sign them up with Voc Rehab. Trying to think about anything else in there. That's good. So let's really focus on outcomes, getting jobs. That's what we want. I can remember when I first got a student a job as a transition specialist, and I thought was amazing. I remember coming home and getting on my bike and going for a bike ride and just smiling and happy and that I had done it. And so we want to do a poll. And in that poll, we're wondering, how do you feel when a YTP participant gets a job or gets into a training program or to college? So if you guys can we'll give you maybe a minute to.
Mary Jo, it's the wrong poll.
Yeah, we need
It's
7.
supposed to be poll, Garrett, it has to be poll 6 or 7, remember?
I think it's 7.
Yeah. Perfect, thank you. Looking good. Remember, it's multiple choice, so you don't have to choose just one. I like that bottom one, sad because they no longer need you.
3% said yes. That's
Yeah.
good.
All right, I'm gonna end this. So, we're looking at, of course, euphoric, elated, excited. That sense of accomplishment, I think, is huge. You should be proud, which is the next one. And then it is sad. I mean, it's sad when the kids get their jobs and fly away. The wonderful thing, I would never be friends with my students on Facebook until they graduated. And it is just a joy to me now when kids reach out to me and I hear what they're doing and how successful they are. So I think it's great. So, and here's our results. Are they showing on there? I'm seeing something different.
Yeah, the poll is up.
Okay, so you guys all see where you are. So it's great. And we want to celebrate that. We want to celebrate when students get jobs or get into a training program. That's our goal. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see. Oh, I have to go up here. All right, Terry.
Okay, so when we look at, we say that YTP has benchmarks, and they do. They are benchmarks for an application, for getting IPEs complete, an engagement, which is either work or training, and then closed rehab. And so when we talk about this cohort model, it's like, oh my God, 20 people in and out in a year. Well, okay, let's look at the real numbers and see what that means. And I can do math in my head, especially when it's 40% of 20. Say your student base is 20, you're a rural site. 40% of 20 is 8 students. So getting 8 students in competitive integrated work employment over a 2-year period, how does that sound? Does that sound doable? How about in a urban site, you're going to have 25 if you're a full-time person, and 50% of that is 13 students in competitive integrated employment in a 2-year time period. You know, when I hear those numbers, I go, oh, okay, that sounds a lot more doable. And I hope you feel that way too, because 2 years, you know, depending when you sign that student up, you don't want to sign them up if they're not ready to work, right? That's one of the things that is a requirement for VR. They want to work. So getting that many out in that time period seems like reasonable request, right? So that's just one of your benchmarks. So what else? What do we have next?
All right, I'm going to go into this on how the work of the YT team, how the work of the YTP team is changed by the cohort model. What changes you think about how to get students into and exiting YTP within 2 years, and how will you use your team differently? So we're going to go in again, and this comes to, it's a bit of a review for your YTP team, and how, if you work together, the transition specialist is not doing all the work, but enhancing what the special education teachers are doing, what the career center is doing, what the CTE teachers are doing. You're there to help those things and work with the students to make sure they understood what they had been taught. So YTP is a team activity, and we can't stress this enough. Back when I first started in YTP, I was very fortunate to be in 4J, where there were 4 transition specialists, but I knew people out there that were in a silo. They were all by themselves in their schools, and that it was very, very difficult, and we do not want that to happen in any of our schools. So you guys have seen this before. This was at regionals last fall, where we really talked, in Summer Academy last year, where we really talked about your team and who your core team is. Remember, it's the transition specialist, your administrator, your vocational rehabilitation counselor, and your special education teacher. And those are the people that you want to work the closest with. You get into a high school and you want to meet that teacher. You want to, get to know them. You two are going to be, sometimes you're tied at the hip when working with students. So you're not alone in the school. You have your team. Teachers have responsibilities through IDEA in regards to transition. Your job is to enhance those skills with students. So as you go through, your administrator, and I can't see the list of participants, so I'm hoping there's some administrators on today. You're there to assist the development of the YTP program and the IGA, Intergovernmental Agreement, that a lot of the time an administrator will write that grant. So you really need to know what each other is doing. Another big piece, and I really want to, I can't stress this enough, how important it is that when an administrator is going to hire a new transition specialist, that they invite the VRC, the vocational rehabilitation counselor, to those interviews. They are going to have a very close relationship, and they understand the full breadth of the program. So we really want to, that is in the IGA, that we ask that you have a VRC at those interviews. You're supporting and supervising the transition specialist in the schools and community. They need that first introduction, where, like Garrett talked about last week, where's my office? Where's my computer? How am I going to do this? They assist in educating the faculty and staff regarding the roles and responsibilities of all YTP core members. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, and they said, I don't have any team members, was in the chat. And in that makes me very sad. in those cases, I think it's really important to talk to your administrator as a transition specialist and ask if you can go to a staff meeting and talk about YTP and what it is. At the beginning of every school year, because there's always new staff, I sent an email out and talked about what my role was as a transition specialist in the school, where they might be seeing me. An example might be I'm working with a student on self-advocacy, and I know that student really needs, they need to go see their math teacher because of their grade. And so self-advocacy, the way I saw it and the way I still see it, to teach that, the kids were scared to death to go talk to their math teacher. That was the last thing in the world they wanted to do. And it was like, okay, I'm going to walk up with you. I'm going to wait outside the door and you're going to go in. Are you okay with that? And I would maybe wave at the teacher, and they knew because I had already communicated with them that that would be my role in helping students. So letting all your staff know, who you are. Go to the staff room, get to know those teachers. CTE, all of those, performing arts, all of those different classes teachers that teach those classes that a lot of our students will be in. So getting a hold of your administrator in your school and asking for that is a great thing to do. Again, your special education teacher, I can't tell you how important that is. And I know that some of you struggle with that. Some of the teachers are like, I'm here just to get the kids to graduate, and that's my job. But for you to try and break that and get to know the teachers by telling them what you have to offer. They're going to manage the education, they have their caseload to ensure the school meets the requirements under IDEA. They're responsible for writing that IEP. And the great thing with that is you can contribute to that because you are getting to know students. You may know things that the student brought up to you but had never told the teacher. And so those are really important things. They deliver the academic functional skills instructions to prepare students for transition, provide guidance to students as a member of the IEP YTP team, and support students' employment and adult living objectives by providing instruction aligned with post-secondary goals, which is what we hope all students get so that they are ready for their next stage in life right after they graduate.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for the teacher to go to, my teacher is not special ed. It's not a special ed. I mean, he knows, he was a special ed teacher and he's licensed to read with special ed, but he's not, like right now, he's not hired as a special ed teacher.
Well,
does he have to be a special ed?
Well, you would want to work with the teacher who is the special education teacher who has a caseload of students on IEPs. There must be somebody at the school that does that.
Yeah, and that's Erin.
Yeah. So that would be good to get to know Erin and develop a relationship with Erin, and so that you can learn about all the students and talk with them when things come up, and get that list of all the students on IEPs, and work with them as a team. Is that a possibility?
Well, Mr. Lawson, he has kind of the same knowledge of that, because Aaron Hildebrand, he's a special ed person there as of last year.
Yeah.
But before, yeah. And then he had assigned a teacher to me, but the teacher said the special ed said that he already had so many things going on. So he couldn't be part of my YTP. So I don't know where, but I thought I informed myself good. I asked like YTP around, and they said that they didn't have to. It was okay if it was not a special ed teacher.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah, I was just going to say I'd refer them to you, Michelle.
Yep, sure. So Cynthia, we can talk more about this afterwards, but in your case, your core team has a CTE teacher and you're taking a really inclusive approach, and you're working with quite a few 504 students. And so that's one of the beauties of YTP is the ability to kind of customize the people who want to be, be strength-based and then go with the willing and go with innovation. And so what you're doing is totally fine. You'll always have to communicate with Erin and the SPED team, which you do and you are, but it's, this is the model and you're varying a little bit from it, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Okay,
Great.
it's just I was getting confused. I wanted to make sure that I was doing okay.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Cynthia. Thanks, Michelle. Can't remember where I was. Let's see. So the transition there specialist is there to, they're enhancing what the teacher is doing with transition skills. They're offering pre-ets. They're bringing in speakers to the classroom. I know sometimes it's like, it's hard to get into a classroom. We don't have a transition class. A lot of teachers will have study halls, or and I think those are great too. Go in and ask if maybe once or twice a week you can do a presentation and do CIS, and you can bring in speakers there. You can bring in somebody from the work source to talk about jobs. There's all kinds of things where you can help, but you have to have that relationship again with the teacher to be able to get into that classroom and show them what you can bring, that you have the latest information on online applications, and you know how to do that. You can go in and work with students on that. You're as a transition specialist, of course, you collaborate very closely with your voc rehab counselor to identify and help students apply for services. After you have done all the screening and you are sure that this student is ready to work, that would be when you would go and talk with your VR counselor about getting an intake. You provide ongoing tracking systems. The YTP database, and then the separate pre-ETS database, and then your caseload. A way that we used to do this at South Eugene High School is we did a Google Doc and had all the kids, all the students on one side, and then wrote across the top all the activities that needed to be done. And we shared it so that if another teacher had found something out, they could write notes. If they had done something with a student, talking about college or something, they could write that in there, what they had done and with which students. So we all worked together to make sure that the students were getting everything possible to help them be successful. You're also a partner with the local community to develop work-based learning experiences, job shadows, and possible jobs and where students can find work. So, and then of course, the very important person in here is your vocational rehabilitation counselor. You work really close with them to identify and enroll students with their career goals. And that's why, when you go in with a student and say, I think they're ready, and talk, I would kind of briefly talk with my VR counselor and say, well, I've got a student, being very vague, and yeah, that's good. And this is what I've done with them so far. So I think they're ready to jump right into work. They are also your VRC is there to identify any other community supports that might be out there that you might not know about. And then they write the IPE, but then also attend that meeting when the student signs their IPE, and so the student knows what's going to come next. What is voc rehab going to pay for? What are everybody's roles? Sometimes VRCs can go to IEP meetings. If unfortunately they need to know about it a long time. Unfortunately, many of us who worked in schools know that parents cancel at the last minute, and meetings get canceled or get scheduled at the last minute, and it's a tough thing. But if the family wants that and you feel it's really important, as your team has decided, those are meetings that should be made well in advance, so the VRC can be there. And again, they collaborate with other core team members. So we've got a poll, another poll. I love them. So so now that you've heard about that and different things about the teams, and I know that we've brought this up before, but what are the things that your team does well? What are you excited about and maybe not so excited about? So here we go. Jump in. This is multiple choice again.
I have a question if you have a minute.
Sure.
So how does that work with juniors if we're pushing employment? A lot of our students won't most likely get steady jobs as a junior and keep them. So are we still taking them onto our caseload, or what is the plan moving forward with that?
You know, that is a great question. I can't see who's talking because of the way my screen is set up, but that's a great question, and that's exactly what the rest of this session is going to be about.
Perfect. And it's Judy.
Thanks, Judy. I don't like not being able to see faces when I'm talking. So here's our poll. And I love this. I mean, we've got 67% say they meet regularly, which is great. Attending trainings and conferences together. I can't say enough. Like Terry was saying at the beginning, you know, get your teachers, encourage your teachers to go to different things when they can. Staff, students.
We can't see the poll.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for telling me that.
Thank you.
Can you now? Good. So meets regularly,
Yes.
attends conferences. Thank you. Staff, students as a team. That's a great way. I mean, if you're having trouble with a student, there's probably somebody else in your school, an administrator who may have seen this student through the years, other teachers, and you need to, you know, they may have some insight to a student as to, you know, to certain behaviors, to certain things that are going on in their families. So it's always good to reach out to others so you can get that full picture of a student. I love this one that people are saying they have fun together. 62% of you, and this makes me sad. I'm glad it's only 17%, but that even makes me sad. Is I work mostly alone, and I think those of you who chose that, I really hope you reach out to your technical assistance provider and figure out ways that you can solve that problem, and hopefully some changes can be made. We understand that it is very rough because, you know, right now we're hearing, yesterday we were talking about this principal's moving to this school and this superintendent's going, and there's the shuffle that happens this time of year, and it gets hard. Sometimes you show up at the beginning of the school year and you've got a totally different sped teacher that you're going to work with. So we understand that, but through communication, we really hope that we can help you solve that. And then this is great, 55% share responsibility. So we have next, we want to hear from you. What are your questions? What are your thoughts from what you've heard so far? And again, we're going to go into, Judy, I love your question because it's how do we do this in 2 years and how does this happen? So any questions? Michelle is monitoring the chat room, but I would love it if you would unmute yourself and talk to us.
Actually, Michelle said she got kicked off of chat for a moment.
Uh-oh.
So,
Another question.
I'm here, you guys. I just can't see the screen. I can see the chat box. I don't know what's going on, but I can see the chat box, but not the screen. So
okay,
I'll read if anything comes up.
All right. Any brave souls out there to talk?
Okay, I have another question.
Oh.
The question is, how does this work if you reach out to your YT or your transition assistant, like Garrett is mine, and you reach out to the SPED director and you can't set up a meeting and you don't have the cooperation from the school. I mean, we've tried everything that we can on this side of it and it's still non-functional at this particular school. So I still work alone at that school. My other school, I'm very involved in part of that team, but at this one, not so much.
And isn't that sad that you see how it can work so wonderfully?
Yes, it's a lot more challenging to do it alone.
Yeah, I would agree. Again, I'm sure that, I don't know if Garrett, do you want to jump in and answer that?
I was distracted trying to help Michelle here. What was the question?
Hi, Garrett, it's Judy. I was just curious how it works if you can't get a response from the SPED director or anyone to collaborate as a team. We've been working with Central and haven't been able to get that cooperation. And so I'm just wondering what's the next step if that doesn't work?
If you can't get through to her, I can try and get through to her, or you talk to your WESD admin and try and arrange for something, and we'll have a conversation around that. Hopefully by having that initial meeting, we can just try and explain YTP and the importance of working together and collaborating as a team, because you can't do the work by yourself. It's a team effort, and that's how YTP is designed. And that's what it takes to get the outcomes that we're hoping for as a program. And we just need to have everyone understand that and come together and work together to be successful.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Garrett. I think that's really true. I mean, that would have been my answer too. It's like, let me, as a technical assistance provider, I can call that administrator and talk with them and answer questions that they have. And it could just be lack of knowledge. And it just takes someone to talk with them about what YTP is.
But also, who was the administrator who signed off on the grant application?
I'm not quite sure because I'm at ESD and we actually don't write our grants. Willamette ESD does that for us. So
well, I would find out, who signed off on it, as the administrator, because it's the administrator that has to sign off on it. And so that person would know what the grant's all about, hopefully. I mean, hopefully they didn't just sign it without paying attention to what they were signing.
Yeah.
So assuming they knew what they were signing, I would get that person involved to help you.
Thanks, Larry. That's great advice. And you should all be able to have a copy of your grant. You need to see what or your IGA, your changing to an IGA, but your grant that was signed and you should have a copy of that. So that information would be there. Thanks, Larry. I know some of your voices, not all of them.
Mary Jo, we have just a theme sort of here is like, whose responsibility is it really to create a team environment where healthy teams exist?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult. And I think sometimes, if you're in a school where the administrator isn't communicating, you're struggling with the special ed teacher, I think sometimes as a transition specialist, you see what needs to be done. And even if it's that very simple thing of going to your school principal. I mean, I'll look back on my experience, and I worked in a school. I worked in 2 high schools, but my administrator was an administrator in the district office. So she wasn't at either of my schools. So I had to take that and go to the principal and introduce myself to the principal. This is what I do. And then I took it under my, with my persistence and said I want to talk at a staff meeting, and then I just sent out emails, all staff emails. I did whatever I could that way. Sometimes you have to they've got to see that you're legitimate. It's really a tough one. And you know, with the teachers, if you can bring in information, the latest and the greatest that's out there, and offer to teach that to students, and just show by doing how valuable you are in the school.
Mary Jo, oh,
yeah.
sorry. I thought you were done. I'm sorry. Megan and I are really fortunate. Our special ed director and her associate are very, very supportive, and even our vice principal. Our principal is still learning about our positions. So we are very, very fortunate to have the support we have. And even the alternative schools that Megan and I support are very, very supportive of what we do. We have had a lot of turnover in the last, not a lot, I shouldn't say that. We have some retirements, and then we have some new staff. And so we have been talking about putting together that exact same thing, that little slideshow, if we ever get to go back to school, about what YTP is, because we're just not the coffee people. This is exactly what we do. We're college and career readiness, which, you know, we're really big on at the high school. So that's exactly what we do as well. We're college and career readiness people, and we support that. So that's something to think about. I don't know what other schools really push their college and career readiness program, but if you can get tied into that, we've been really, I'm pretty forceful. So Megan and I have been kind of like trying to really push that program too, that we do the same exact thing as they do, and except just in a little bit different parameters. So that's just another idea as well.
That's great. And that was kind of how I operated too.
People speak.
And,
can you tell us who's just speaking and where you work? Just because people we can't see, and if we can introduce ourselves, that's really helpful.
That's a great idea, Terry. Thanks.
I'm sorry. I'm Lori Brownlow from St. Helens High School, and I'm on mute. I don't have my video up because I've been in and out of the house, and it's pretty. I'm outside, and it's really bright out there, so you wouldn't be able to see me anyway.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah. I
Mary Jo. Oh.
Yeah.
Mary Jo, this is Joyce from Springfield.
Hey, Joyce.
Hey, I miss you. Okay. One thought that I had is just depending on the administrator you're talking to, you could talk money. I mean, you're somebody there supporting students that they're not having to pay for out of their budget. So if it's like a high up administrator, they might like that idea. And it might help them support you.
Yeah.
Plus, like your staff in the building for the building administrator that's not coming out of their budget.
Right.
So that might just be an idea. Also, if you have like a coffee cart or something, you can go and talk to the school board, you know, and promote what you're doing and get as much PR. Like they love PR. Districts have PR departments and all that fun stuff. So that's my little 2 cents.
Well, thanks, Joyce.
And here in the chat from Tony DePeel, former transition specialist, now pre-eds coordinator, just makes a really great point of being present in the school, attend events so that people get to know you and you build relationships. She's at the ESD now, so they don't see her as much, but, you know, offer to help with Spirit Week, take tickets, be the snack shack person, just be present and get to know. So many of you go, what am I doing with my job when you're new? And we say build relationships in the beginning, because all of that stuff matters when you're doing the work all throughout the years and building a team. So
that's thanks
for sharing that, Tony.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. You know, you've got to be present. You can't sit in an office. You've got to be out and about. I loved going to the students I worked with, all their sporting events. And when they saw me in the stands, you could just see them just beam like they do when any teacher or important person in their life comes to those things. So it's just all those little things. All right.
Our boss always tells us is, which is kind of, I guess, a different way of looking at, like you were talking about financial. Basically, our position at our high school, they're basically getting 2 of us for the price of 1.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Sell yourself, because you're all amazing. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Terry, and I think she's going to answer a lot of your questions coming up.
Well, so one of the things that we did to put this presentation together is write a list of all the jobs that all the things that a transition specialist does. So I'm sure we miss some of those, and you can't really classify everything you do, because I always say a transition specialist has a hybrid position in the school. Nobody else really does what you do. And you're constantly educating people because you get new teachers and they're like, well, I see you running, what do you do? You know, and they used to laugh at me at IEP meetings. They'd say, oh, here comes Terry, transition. And so they thought that was my last name, I think. But I was always talking about what we did with kids. And so we took this list and divided it into activities you do not with your students that aren't student-centered, and activities you do throughout the building. And I just heard like 10 things that I don't have on the list. So as you know, there's so many different things we all do. And these are the things you do with your team. You go to SPED team meetings, YTP team meetings. How about referral to DD, SSI, brokerages? You're part of a team. Does the transition specialist do that, or is there someone else on your team who can do it? And I think one of the things that I think will help us be better at our jobs is to share these responsibilities. Sometimes maybe your VRC can help with that. Maybe you have an 18 to 21-year-old program where someone does that, because there's a lot of things that need to get done to get kids to reach some of their initial goals when they get out of school. And it does, it takes a team, because doing everything one-on-one will take a long time, of course. And so some of the team activities that I really like to encourage, and Mary Jo said the same thing, go to the consortium meetings. Summer Academy is a lot of fun. It's like a camp out for adults where we do some sharing and getting together and learning from each other. You know, I was saying when I was getting ready for this, we're a community of practice. We're not a community of perfection. We're all learning, and we continue to learn from each other. And we need each other to do some of these things and share some of these responsibilities, so that as a transition specialist, we have time to get out in the community and market YTP, get to know the businesses in the community. They want to call you when they have a job, you know, get it there. And how do you do that is by sharing some of these responsibilities with your team, because you want to focus on getting those 8 or 13 kids jobs. So you've got to be out in the community. And the one thing I always like to remember is the family communication and involvement. Sometimes your families are your job developers, because they'll say, well, he really likes this and I know Joe. Or his best friend has a job at the wrecking plant. You're like, do you have any friends who have a job? So families are huge in this whole process. And this is just a list of some of the things you do in the school, and I haven't even touched on many of the things you guys talk about, because you're really involved, and that's what makes a successful program. And I also like to encourage everyone to do the exit interviews and follow-up interviews, and to share that information with the team. So you can see that is what's YTP doing with your students in the school, and what is the value of YTP. And part of the reason we're doing this change is so that we can say, oh, look it, these are the YTP students, and these are their outcomes. These kids didn't participate, and these are their outcomes. And of course, not every student that you work with has a barrier to employment, and you may decide that they don't need YTP. So then the next slide is this, Mary Jo, can you go next? Okay, I'm going to try to remember this word, chunking. So as an educator, we always try to chunk things, you know, because we're all educators. If we can work with 5 students and do an activity instead of 1 student at a time, we will be more successful and use our time better. And so these next activities are student-centered activities, and we do these before we do a VR intake, and I call it screening to referral. So
Terry, can I jump in on this chunking section too real quick? This is Aaron with Voc Rehab. One of the great things about this chunking idea to build value within the school as well as incorporating both individuals with disabilities and those without, is to see if you have some of these activities which your gen ed students are also potentially interested in doing, because it allows you an opportunity then to improve the value added to your program serving your SPED kids, but gets exposure to general population as well. So the integration piece is there. But if you as an individual YTP specialist has limits for taking students off campus, you now have more students that can go, and it provides an opportunity for additional staffing resources to go with you as well.
Thank you. You're like a plant. Thank you. That is true. So screening to referral, one thing I do want to just touch on quickly is mirroring the population. And we talk about it. It's part of mirroring the population means you need to know what is your school or ESD's SPED population. How many students are there? How many have this disability, that disability? How many are male, female? And you want to try to mirror that population in your YTP caseload, right? Your student base. And the only way you're going to know that is by having your admin, your teacher, and yourself sit down, generate a list of the juniors and seniors, and the details would be, when are their IEP meetings? If you start at the beginning of the year and start planning this out, then you have this year planned out, and you're knowing who your students are that are possible YTP, you're screening to see if they are. You start junior year. Someone talked about, well, should I sign a junior up? Maybe if you're going to put them in Camp Lead or Swift, but I think I usually would wait later. Are they ready? We have to ask different questions instead of, are they juniors or seniors? We have to ask, what have we done with them? And are they ready? And those are really the questions that we ask. Okay, if we want to get them certain services like Camp Lead or Swift, yes, we have to, they have to be you have to have done an intake with them, and they need to be eligible. So also, infrastructure. Garrett talked about that last week. Create a file doc to track activities, and transition specialists need access to SSID numbers, or not always having to go to somebody to ask to get that. And then that's a time suck. Why you're working with kids, you're a school district employee, you need really to have access to that. And that's your infrastructure piece, and that's your teamwork piece. So again, the chunking. If you could have a class, if you get teachers to the conference, the next thing you know, they're teaching a transition class. Well, if that doesn't happen, then you go into the study hall for juniors and seniors, and you do everybody, there's career-related learning standards for every high school student. How does your school do it? If it's CIS, become an expert in CIS so you can go into the class and see what students are doing and talk to them about that. And one of the things that I think is so important to do with every student is the disability awareness and disclosure piece, because, and in this case, I wouldn't have a mixed group. This would be all your kids on IEPs. And that is such an empowering thing to do with young people, because all their lives they've been labeled something, like you have a disability. It's not a difference, but it is a difference, and to be able to talk to what that is, and we did this in class, and I had a kid raise their hand, and they're like, yeah, in third grade, all of a sudden, they took me to the janitor's closet to read. I'm like, okay, moving right along. So to hear what kids have to say about how they feel about their disability, and then to turn it into the strength, how do we go from that to multiple intelligence? How are you smart? Because we all have that niche. And getting kids ready to go on and be successful, I think these are really key pieces. And if we can chunk some of these in classes that just are SPED kids, but then when we look at getting kids out in CTE programs, getting kids to go to, when they do a community college, hands-on career day, your kids are going on that bus with the rest of the kids in the school. So you are the advocate for your students and your team. Somehow, if you can help your transition specialist have access to more than one student at a time, you're going to have a more successful program, I feel like. So that's what I encourage. And some of the other things we do, driver's ed, industry tours, mock interviews. No, you can go on. Meg, career speakers. And Erin said, get them out there and in those general ed classes. Okay, I have to slow down. I have to take a breath. I get excited. So, okay, screening to referral, family involvement. Again, really, really key, really key. Attend IEP meetings, prepare for IEP meetings, get students prep for IEP meetings. The more students can talk about how they learn and what they want and talk about it in a strength-based way, the more ready they are for VR. And so 8 of your students of 20 say get jobs. What about the others? Well, what about training? Especially when we're looking at COVID-19 and we don't know what's gonna happen. None of us really know, right? So in 2008 and 9, community colleges had huge enrollment because there weren't jobs. And so I really think that learning about what colleges are close enough to you to have kids there, have a relationship with the accessible education people there, take your students out there. If you know, at Churchill, when we had testing day, freshmen, sophomore, juniors all had tests, but seniors didn't. So we set up the placement test to the community college, the ASFAB test, do those things, and all students had access to it, and make sure your students are there, right? And post-high school training, Job Corps tours, apprenticeships. There's so many different training options, and I think we're really going to be looking at those in the next year or two because of what's going on with our economy and the pandemic, and we don't really know what to expect. And there's a benefit to that because students who have training do better long-term, right? I mean, we all do. Education is really, I love when VR helps pay for education, VRCs. And then there's FAFSA. All schools have FAFSA nights, you know? Get your students to those nights. You can go with them, you can learn, you can be an expert. I always never liked knowing how much people made exactly, but I did FAFSA with students also. And signing up with accessible education. One of the interesting things is kids will say, well, I don't really need it, you know? And I say, yeah, I can understand that, but you know, I'd have it in my back pocket. So go through the process, talk about yourself, and if something happens, you have that in your back pocket, you know, because you never know what's going to happen. So then the other thing is, you know, our summer activities. Being YTP, kids have access to Swift. I mean, how cool is that? Living in a dorm in Portland, and you know, just the things that happen at Swift and Camp Lee for young people are amazing. Changes people's trajectory, and they're with their peers, and they talk, you know, Camp Lee does curriculum. I was a counselor there one summer, and kids just, it's just so great to see that growth and to see people be able to talk openly about how they were treated in school and how comfortable they feel with other kids with disabilities and how how smart they are. You know, and I think that we forget that sometimes. There's Jonathan Mooney, who's a speaker, and he talked about his experience with ADHD. And there's also HBO did a journey into dyslexia, and they did these programming, and it, you know, a lot of that just talks about students with dyslexia, ADHD. They're the big thinkers in our world. They're the people who start businesses, and those are the people who do terrible in school because they're not good at giving back or repeating things. But we have such valuable people we work with in the school system. Sometimes they don't feel as valued as when they become adults. They realize all their potential, and our job is to help them. But anyway, SWIFT, Camp Lead, and the RFA, I would really encourage people to look at doing something small. It's, you can pay kids, and it gives you an opportunity to get out in the community and develop jobs and relationships, and you can pay staff, and you can have job coaches. That's like a dream come true for a YTP program, right? So anyway, that's okay.
Carrie, hold on just a second. I wanted to just say over in chat, there was some feedback, like we would love some training around disability awareness and disability disclosure. Heather hopped on and said, of course, that's included in Maggie, so plug for Maggie, but also that we could offer some, you know, community practice or weave that into our future trainings as well. So thanks for that feedback.
That's great. And we always taught disability awareness, and the first thing we did with students when they came in is gave them their CUME folder about everything, and then they just went through it, and it's like, why do they say this about me or that about me? And it's, you've got a voice now. You can run this and tell us what you need, and for your accommodations and stuff. So there's a curriculum out there called Disability 411. I don't know, we used it and it was great. And it was about kids understanding their disabilities and you know, how they can be advocates. And so there are some things out there. There's probably newer stuff out there too that I'm not aware of, but like Michelle said, that would be a great community of practice for us.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's so rewarding to do it with a group of kids. And you know, before you do something like that, of course you have to have trust from those kids, because it takes a lot of courage for them to, you know, to speak of their experience. So okay, so after all that screening to referral, you decide, oh, I think this student is ready. So I have my YTP manual, which we are updating. Oh, you can't see because we have something on the screen. So in the manual, if you go to page 25, this is what it says about screening and referral. I call it screening to referral. So things to consider when you're going to sign a kid up. Does the student have a clear desire to work? Does the student have a barrier to employment that requires VR services? Is the student between the age of 14 and 21? Will the student leave school within the next 2 years? Is the student at risk of dropping out of school in the near future? You might want to sign them up and try to keep them in school. Does the student have a support system, maybe family, friends, or school personnel? And has the student demonstrated a desire for help? That's a huge one, okay? Is he involved and does he follow through? I checked all those for this student.
And the student has a desire to work, not the parents having a desire for him to work.
Right. So I checked all those. I looked at my manual. And, so now I'm ready to refer this student to VR. And basically, I have a file and I have their testing and IEP information and all the paperwork. You know, how do we get it done during the pandemic? There's a lot of paperwork to fill out, and normally I would sit down with the student or send it home, and I mostly did it with the student, and then they would bring it home for the signatures. it's a little more tricky today. You have to figure out how to get it done online because some people don't want you coming to their homes, or it's just, you know, we know everything that took 10 minutes may now take 2 hours, right? So it's a lot more difficult in this environment, but we help the students fill that paperwork out, have a VR intake appointment, and you know, long before this, hopefully we've seen that they have an SSI card and a picture ID. You know, sometimes at the last minute we find out, oh, I can't find that. So we also, that's not even on the list of things that we talked about earlier, is helping kids get those birth certificates. Often the thing that kids need and they don't have is birth certificates, actually. So anyway, so this is all the things that you do after you've screened. So you may have a list of 40 students that you've worked with, and 15 or 16 of them are going to be signed up with VR. Not everyone wants that. Not everyone meets that criteria, or maybe they're just not quite ready today, you know? And when Garrett talked last week, he was like 30,000 people have been affected by YTP, but that's only the students we've signed up. Just think of all the students that you worked with and you got them to community college, or you helped them do this, that, or the other thing, and they did not become YTP. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive, I think, that many, 10,000 every 10 years. Okay, so we're going to shoot for like 15,000 in 10 years. Just kidding. So anyway, it's time for a poll. The poll says, with this paradigm shift, what do you think you will do differently in order to meet the YTP benchmarks? So here we go.
I'm not seeing, oh, there we go. Okay, took a little bit. Are you seeing this, Terry?
Yep, it's right in front of me.
Cool, then you can.
Everybody's, that means everybody. I think last time I pulled it off the screen and I didn't know it, sorry.
Interesting.
Okay, let's see, a few more people. Can you do the poll? I don't think I can do the poll.
No, not while we're presenting, I don't think.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to end it.
Okay, so.
Your results. All right.
What do you think you will do differently? 40% work differently as a team. 19% sign work ready students up later. Sign work ready students up earlier. So that's interesting. Spend more time screening students. Wow, 50%. Whoa, that's cool. Spend more time job developing, 40%. Again, my duties won't change. I am already working towards these goals. So, you know, we're always changing, I think, what we do and how we work. And every training sort of gives you different ideas too from what other people are doing. So that sounds great. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to get that out of here. So questions, comments, concerns, anybody?
Hi, yeah, this is Cassie from Rex Putnam YTP. Actually, I was really freaked out about this whole entire thing about 2 weeks ago. And I'm about 2 years into the program, but what I'm seeing is when I first started and I had a bunch of people, my specialists were bringing kids to me, and I had not been invited to IEPs. I knew them kind of as an IA, but now I kind of see it's all kind of shifted a little bit, that paradigm shift, yay. Now I know that you work with your freshmen, you get your teachers to get you into their IEPs, their parents know you, and that's another big thing. is when I show up at IEPs when they're juniors, they're like, who are you? And you work and build that relationship. And then when they're juniors or more likely seniors, you can get those kids, who are going to be focused on wanting those jobs or going to training. And you've done all that pre-eds up to that point, and now you've got kids who can successfully get through our YTP program.
Yeah.
Is that kind of where this is going? It makes sense to me in my head that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 2 years in and it's starting to make sense. That makes sense to me too, because it takes, it's true. It takes time to figure out. And then there's such a steep learning curve, learning all the resources in your community. And it sounds like you're right on.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
Anybody else? Comments? I had criticisms up there, but Mary Jo made me say concerns.
Hi. My name's Teresa Sepulveda, and I am an intern with Voc Rehab in Pendleton. So I am very, very new to all of this. And so I just wanted to kind of introduce myself, number one, because maybe everyone's kind of going, who's that person? And also to just the comment you made about the learning curve and that kind of thing. That's kind of how I'm like, I don't know what all of these, acronyms mean. And so it's pretty new to me, but I figure if I just continue to go to as many trainings as possible, I'll kind of catch on here and there. And I just wanted to, I guess, just make that kind of the comment and just introduce myself. So
thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. All right, we better move on here. We've got, of course, a lot more to go, and want to make sure we get through it. Again, that's kind of the last, maybe at the very end we'll have some time for some other questions, but put them in if you have a question and we don't get to it, put it in the chat, because we are going to read that. We are going to make some, frequently asked questions, different things like that. And so please feel free to do that. We want to hear your voice. So again, what changes when you think about how to get students into and exiting YTP within 2 years? I think that was Judy's question right there. How do you use your time differently? Terry talked a lot about using your time differently and how you can make this a little bit easier on yourself. We have a couple scenarios, and I'm going to talk about a student who actually, it's a kind of a portrait of a student that I did work with very early in my, as a transition specialist. And, this is just a quick little rundown about Brittany. She comes from great family support. Both parents attend IEPs. They're really involved. No one in their family had gone to college. They were working, I think her dad worked at the power company. And so they were active in the community and very active in their kids' education. She was really motivated in school and really wanted to do well, was very frustrated when she didn't. She had a positive approach to disability. Again, this is a student, we had students in a YTP transition, not YTP, a transition class that I was a big part of and co-taught with a teacher when I was available to be there. So we really talked a lot about disability. That's one of the first things, as I said, we did. We gave the kids their CUME file and said, read it. And it was really eye-opening. She was on track to get a regular diploma. She was doing everything. She didn't need any help with transportation. She didn't want to get a driver's license. She was very nervous about that, but she was very comfortable on the local buses. She said she loved photography. She was a great advocate for herself. She was always, well, how do I learn? How do I learn? I want to do better. This was a student who is a gem in any high school because she learned to understand her learning issues. And then she got into a journalism class, and she actually wrote, what does it mean to be on an IEP at South Eugene High School? And it was so powerful. And she talked about how lucky she was to have supports, and we were glowing after that came out. She really struggled with math. That was her downfall, and she really struggled. She comprehends better with verbal and visual directions. As a senior project with our career-related learning standards, she wanted to look at being a photographer. She doesn't test well, she's stressed, all of that. And then at the end, I just put that in there, she wants to become a nurse because Brittany and I are still in touch with each other. And she sent me a message the other day and she goes, I want to be a nurse. They're all telling me she's a CNA 2 now. And everyone there in the emergency room at Riverbend Hospital, and they're all telling her she needs to go to school to become a nurse. And she wrote to me and she goes, how am I going to do this? I'm on an IEP. I was on an IEP. This is hard. And so I just, sometimes somebody might look at this student and go, she's going to be fine on her own. As I got to know Brittany, I realized she talked about it, but I didn't think she would ever come up with the money and go get her CNA and follow her dreams. So this is kind of the path that we took. And I know this looks kind of intimidating and overwhelming. This all came from Terry and Charlotte, our fearless leader at the U of O, on a whiteboard one day, kind of how do we get students through in that time? And we're running short on time, and I want to get through this. But again, this is recorded, and we can get this information to you through your technical assistance providers. But creating that file like Terry talked about, interviewing students. The first time I saw juniors, the first thing I did is made appointments to sit and interview them individually and find out what they needed. And in that, and then I've already said I co-taught the transition class, always doing self-advocacy. Brittany didn't need help with Social Security. She wasn't going to be using any other services in the community. So she had a birth certificate. I used to make the students, right when I would meet them, say, bring me in your Social Security card. I want to see your identification. I want to see what you have, because no matter if they signed up with Voc Rehab or not, they were going to need that Social Security card to get a job and a photo ID. So that was something we started right away in their junior year. Let's see, transition assessments. I can't say enough how valuable they are and how valuable they are to do again. As you can see here, we did it the junior year, senior year, talked ad nauseum about the results of those assessments and their skills assessments, their wants, their dreams, how they learn. And then always career awareness. We did a lot of career awareness by everything the community offered on as far as certificates and credit courses and non-credit courses. This list continues on. We did career exploration, and it's just kind of showing you what this 2-year biennium numbers here at the top show you is, you've got to keep after it and keep a list. And I think I said earlier, I can't remember if I said it earlier when I was practicing, that we did a Google Doc between myself and the teachers. And whenever we worked on things, we checked them off. Very similar to this list. Prepare for the IEP. I hear people say they've gone to an IEP meeting and had never even met the student. And that happens sometimes, but I really made it a practice to have met with the student before I go to their IEP, find out what they want. And, a lot of times we go into these IEP meetings and the student never talks, but the parents say what they want for their child. We really would focus those IEPs. We opened them up with, why are you on an IEP? So the student totally understands why they're on an IEP, and they were all student-led. And then, so bringing that up and knowing that. So I knew how to come to the meeting and be prepared to talk about what the students' dreams were. Job club, Brittany just didn't want to do the job club. She worked at the high school for credit. She was always a teacher's assistant. She really liked that, and it was great. And she always did it in math, which cracked me up because math was really hard, but That's how motivated she was. Her post-high school training she did with her summer senior project. She was wanting to become a photographer, and that was what she did for her summer project. And then after that, she realized she didn't want to do that anymore. We always did community college placement tests in the junior year and senior year because they really could change. Resume building applications, mock interviews, those are always evolving. Again, driver's ed, she didn't want to get that. Work-based learning, we worked on that. Internships, college tours, we did that as a class. Disability awareness, again, as a class. Summer work, industry tours, Job Corps visits. She wasn't interested in that at the time, but you know, we always did Job Corps visits, took groups.
And then 4 minutes. We have 4 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, that's fine. It's okay.
So I'm going to go through. So all of these things were done just to show these were all done before it was time to say, okay, Brittany, you because I got to know her so well, it was going to be really difficult for her to follow through. And getting her into a CNA program, getting her signed up with Voc Rehab. Voc Rehab paid for that CNA program, and the sky is now the limit for this wonderful, wonderful woman. So Terry was going to do a little tougher student.
Yeah, and I think that once you get to know students, I think Amanda was probably just as, I don't know if tougher is the word, it just, she took more time to get to find what she wanted. And she went to an 18 to 20-year-old program, and that gave me that extra year to get her into, I think Heather Lindsay was our VR counselor at the time, and somehow or other, we got money to pay kids to do like an RFA in the summer. And Amanda did one of those, and she worked outdoors with like a Northwest Youth Corps group, and she used a chainsaw and a weed eater, and she came home and she's like, I know what I want to do. I want to work outdoors and use my hands. So, you know, I signed her up a year before that because she was a senior and she was graduating, and I thought, oh, I got to sign her up now. But in retrospect and looking at this cohort model, I probably should have waited a year because I wanted her to work more than she wanted her to work. You know, she still wanted to do other things, you know, and that was okay. And she had a lot of things that she had to work through too, you know, and that's okay. That's okay also. She was, because of it, when she came out, she was sure of what she wanted. And I think that's the message is, you know, our manual still has, you know, does the student have a clear desire to work, and have they demonstrated that they want help? Those are two big questions to ask yourself and ask that student. And then we're signing kids up at the right time. And then if we end up signing a kid up at the end of the biennium and they're in this bucket and not that bucket, you can talk about that in your RFA, your proposal. Don't worry about that. You work with the kids, you sign them up when you've done the work, when you've done the screening. And this is kind of a fun thing, Mary Jo, you can talk about this.
Well, this is another one of Charlotte's wonderful ideas, but it was kind of funny, and I started playing with it yesterday and was like, oh boy, I could really get things going. But basically it looks like this. You know, you got a student, that might have been my Brittany, going in there and getting going. There's another student coming in, and then here's Ashley, or not Ashley, Amanda, coming through. It's going to take a little longer. It's, you know, she needs a little bit more work, and getting her realizing what she wanted to do took longer. And all the time we're working on our benchmarks. You're always looking at those and doing that within the biennium, you know. And then it was, you know, of course, you just kind of get playing with it, and they keep popping in, those kids, and they're ready at different times. They're ready for their, you know, you're doing your screening all the time to get to your referral. And that's where we all want to be. You know, sometimes all of a sudden there's somebody who says, oh, I got this student, and you get to know them quick, and you do have to sign them up quick. There's all those different things. So I mean, we look at it, let's grow together for the betterment of all students. We've got this. Let's get kids jobs and make connections. That is our goal, is getting kids jobs. And change is happening all around us in the world. And so I think this is a great time for YTP to be making this change for the better. I really feel.
Yeah.
Wow. It's exactly 2:30. Oh, just changed.
Yeah, thank you guys. This has been fun to do, and I'm glad we're done with it. Because doing something online is just so different than being in person. And I think, like, I have kind of struggled with this a bit. So I'm glad you're all here, and I hope this was helpful. I know it's for those of you who've been around forever, you're probably like, oh yeah. I hope you found something that you can take away from this. And I think it's always good for, as a group, to just review what we do and look at how much you each do and how can you share that responsibility with your team, because the advantages of that are that you'll have more kids and you'll get better outcomes. And that's really what it's all about, is getting kids jobs.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and we were both like, oh, this would have been so great to do in person at Summer Academy. We could have had you all broken into groups and having great discussions, but we'll get there. We'll get back together.
2 quick reminders that have popped up, just to remember that the pre-ETS entry due date is coming in the first week of July, so that's just a couple weeks away.
July
and then
2nd at 5 p.m. They are due.
July 3rd at 5 p.m.
Oh, July 2nd.
Second.
July 2nd at 5 p.m. because July 3rd is a holiday. Thank you.
Thanks.
And just Tony wanted me to mention also that TTAN, we're part of a larger group called TTAN, but they're also partners in training. So if there's specific stuff that your school district or team needs training on, that they're, we all work together on this, and to think about how we can team together at this level for you guys as well.
That's great. Thank you. And next week we have Jesse. He's the one out there still hasn't presented, and he is going to unlock the worlds of the new YTP database.
Yeah. Woo! Woo! I'm excited. Yay!
Yay! So when that happens, after that, we will be here for you guys to make sure you feel comfortable with it in moving forward. So please, thank you so much. If you have other questions, send an email to your technical assistance provider or to any of us, it doesn't matter. And we will see you all next week. Have a great week. The weather's getting better. Yay. Nice to see all your faces.
Hi, everybody.